Hello. The story I'm going to tell you today might spark deep rage and helplessness in you. However, I hope the courage and incredible strength of a woman who managed to rise from absolute despair offers you a little comfort and a glimmer of hope. When I was told I had to go to my company's headquarters in New York for 2 weeks, my mother-in-law, with a disarming smile, insisted that she would take care of my 4-year-old daughter. Moved by her kindness, I felt calm and headed to the airport with a lighter heart. However, halfway there, I realized I had forgotten my passport. Rushing back home, I heard a terrible sound filtering through the crack of the door. The instant I understood what that sound meant, my fingers were already dialing 911 without a second of hesitation. Holding the assignment letter for the trip to New York, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I was euphoric, but at the same time, a wave of worry washed over me. How hard had I fought over the last year to get this opportunity? If I managed to complete this 2 trips successfully, the door to a promotion as department head would fly open and my salary would increase considerably. The dream of moving to a bigger condo where my daughter Isla could finally run around freely seemed within reach. However, my responsibilities as a mother and wife weighed heavier than all that joy. My daughter Isla, who had just turned 4, was on summer break, so I could not leave her at daycare. My husband Marcus was stationed at a big construction site in Texas, and would not be back home for at least 15 days. As I listened to the rhythmic breathing of my sleeping daughter, I left the letter on the desk and sighed deeply. A feeling of guilt began to grow inside me, as if I were a selfish mother, putting her career before her own child. My plan was to call my mother the next morning to ask her to come to Chicago to look after Isla. Although my mother suffered from arthritis in her knees every time the weather changed, in a situation like this, she was my only refuge. But that same afternoon, the doorbell shattered all my plans. When I looked at the video monitor, I was stunned. There stood my mother-in-law, Mama Ada, loaded down with bags of all sizes. Normally, Mama Ada did not come to our house unless it was for something important. And when she did come, it was usually to inspect how I was keeping the house or to make sure I wasn't wasting money. The last time she visited us 3 months ago, she caused a scene because I had bought Isla a dress for $20, accusing me of being a spendthrift. However, when I opened the door, I was met with a radiant smile, completely different from her usual cold and distant expression. "Oh child, what a workout coming up in the elevator to this floor. My ears are popping," she said with unusual familiarity. "I brought you all some fresh farm-raised chickens and some greens from my garden. The stuff they sell in the city is full of pesticides and only brings sickness." I rushed to take the heavy bags from her, feeling a mix of surprise and gratitude. I invited her in, served her a glass of ice water, and with some caution told her about my work trip. I expected her to frown and scold me for abandoning my family for my ambition, as she always did. But to my amazement, Mama Ada put the glass on the table, slapped her knee and exclaimed, "Girl, why are you worrying about foolishness like that? You go on and don't worry. In times like these, a woman has to have her own job. Or do you want to spend your life stuck in the kitchen without being able to lift your head? My Marcus sacrifices enough so that you, being so smart, can help the family too. I'll take care of Isla. I'm her grandma. Go on. Go with peace of mind. I'm not a stranger. I'm her blood grandmother. Do you think I'm going to leave her without eating?" Her words were like a bomb that dissolved the enormous rock pressing on my chest. Seeing her so understanding and affectionate, I started to think that maybe I had been too suspicious of her, that I hadn't known how to see her true nature. Mama Ida rolled up her sleeves and headed to the kitchen without stopping her chatter. "I'll make dinner. You go pack your suitcase. Tonight I'm going to make a good roast chicken so we can build up strength. With how skinny you are, folks in New York are going to laugh at you." That night, dinner passed in an unusually warm and family-like atmosphere. The delicious aroma of roast chicken filled the house, creating an atmosphere of peace. Isla, receiving all her grandmother's affection, curled up in her lap while she stroked her hair with a tenderness I hadn't seen in her eyes in a long time. After dinner, while I was washing the dishes, Mama Ada made me sit next to her on the sofa. Lowering her voice, she asked me with a tone of concern, "Hey Nia, aren't you scared leaving the house alone for so long and going so far away? Do you have valuables in the safe? Documents, money, the wedding jewelry? With how smart thieves are these days, should you leave me the key to the safe or hide it really well? Because you never know when someone might break in." Her question sent a chill down my spine, although it was a logical concern. Her specificity awakened an instinctive caution in me. However, seeing her face, which seemed genuinely worried for me, I dismissed those bad thoughts. She is my husband's mother, my daughter's grandmother. It is impossible that she would want to harm us, I told myself. With a smile, I tried to reassure her. Don't worry, Mama Ada. The only things in the safe are the condo deeds and the few gold pieces my mother gave me for the wedding. I'll leave the key to the safe in the dresser drawer. I'm leaving you a copy of the house key so you can come and go as you need. I took out $200 from my wallet and gave it to her. Here, take this so you can buy Isla whatever she wants during these 2 weeks. She loves her warm milk at 9 o'clock. Please don't forget to warm it up for her. Mama Ida's eyes shone when she saw the money, but she quickly put it in her pocket and nodded repeatedly. Relax, relax. You're exaggerating. If I raise that rascal Marcus all by myself, how am I not going to be able to handle Isla? Go on, go to sleep. You have to wake up early tomorrow to go to the airport. That night, as I hugged my daughter and listened to my mother-in-law's quiet breathing in the next room, I thanked heaven for sending me such firm support at the moment I needed it most. What I could not even imagine is that sudden kindness was nothing more than the sweet wrapping of a cruel conspiracy destined to devour my naive trust. At 5 in the morning, the shrill sound of the alarm clock pulled me from sleep. Outside, the darkness was total. Only the light from the street lamp seeped through the cracks in the blinds, drawing long shadows on the hallway floor. I got up quickly, and when I reached the living room, I saw that Mama Ida was already in the kitchen making breakfast. A comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and toast filled the air. Seeing me, she urged me on. You're up. Come on, shower and eat something so you don't leave on an empty stomach. I already called a taxi. It will be here around 6:15. Hurry up. If you hit rush hour on the expressway, you won't make it. I looked at the clock. My flight didn't leave until 9 o'clock in the morning. It seemed a little early to leave, but I didn't want to reject the kindness of a woman who was worrying so much about me. I got ready quickly and went to the room to say goodbye to my daughter. Isla was sleeping deeply, hugging her old teddy bear. Her parted pink lips were so adorable that I leaned in to kiss her on the cheek. At that moment, Mama Ida, who was in the doorway, stopped me with a strangely urgent voice. Almost a whispered shout. Leave her, girl. Leave her. If you wake her up now, she's going to start crying because you're leaving and there will be no consoling her. Come on, let's go. You're going to be late. Saying this, she took me by the hand. With the other, she grabbed my suitcase and practically pushed me toward the front door. I took one last look at my sleeping daughter and felt a pang of anguish in my chest. A vague uneasiness ran through me, but it was swept away by my mother-in-law's rush. Only 2 weeks, I promised myself. In 2 weeks, Mommy will be back with a bunch of gifts for Isla. The taxi drove away, leaving behind the old apartment building. Sitting in the car, watching the streets of Chicago beginning to wake up, my heart overflowed with hope. I imagined myself giving a brilliant presentation at the headquarters, receiving congratulations from my bosses, and getting the promotion. How happy my husband and mother-in-law would be when I told them. The taxi driver, a very talkative middle-aged man, started a conversation. Going on a business trip, I see. How lucky. So young and talented. I bet they promote you when you get back. I smiled and nodded, feeling a little pride grow inside me. When I arrived at the terminal at O'Hare Airport, I found a hive of people. I dragged my suitcase to the check-in counter and greeted the employee. She returned the smile. Your ID and ticket, please. With total confidence, I opened my purse to take out my red passport wallet, the one I always use for travel. But the smile was wiped from my face in an instant. My fingers felt the empty inside of the bag. It wasn't there. The red wallet wasn't there. I felt my heart drop and a cold sweat ran down my forehead despite the airport air conditioning. Desperate, I dumped the entire contents of my purse onto the counter. Lipstick, a portable battery, a notebook. All kinds of objects fell out, but not a trace of the passport. Panic took over me. I remembered perfectly having left it the night before after packing my suitcase on the dresser next to a bottle of perfume. I had planned to put it in my purse right before leaving, but in the morning, with my mother-in-law's rushing for breakfast and her insistence on not waking the child, I had mistakenly grabbed another document folder of the same color. Ma'am, didn't you bring your ID? The employee said to me with a pitying face. If you live nearby, you have to go get it right now or you won't make it in time. The check-in counter closes soon. With trembling hands, I called my mother-in-law. I wanted to ask her to check if the passport was on the bedroom dresser. If it was there, I would ask her to send it to me immediately with an urgent courier service. With luck, it could still arrive on time. The phone rang and rang, but no one answered. I called 2, 3, up to 5 times, but I only heard the ringtone, a sound that stabbed into my soul like a dagger of despair. It was very strange. Mama had seen me off just 45 minutes ago. She was awake and she always kept her mobile volume at maximum so as not to miss calls from her son. Why wasn't she answering? Was she busy making breakfast for the child? Or maybe she was in the bathroom. I tried to look for a logical explanation to calm myself down, but my instinct screamed at me that something was very wrong. I called my husband Marcus, but I only got the cold response of a recording. The number you are calling is turned off or out of coverage. Helplessness invaded me. There was no other option. I left my luggage in storage and ran out like a madwoman to catch a taxi. Please go as fast as you can. I begged the driver with a voice broken by anxiety. I left something very important. I'll pay whatever is necessary. The taxi flew down the highway. But for me, time seemed to have stopped. During the entire ride back home, I didn't stop calling my mother-in-law, but there was still no answer. The vague uneasiness transformed into overwhelming anxiety that eclipsed even the worry about missing the flight. Why was no one in my family answering the phone? Suddenly, I remembered the way Mama Ada had pushed me out of the house, stopping me from kissing my daughter. The shine in her eyes when I gave her the money. All those little details began to fit together like pieces of a puzzle, drawing a terrible scenario in my mind that I refused to accept. Clinging to my phone, I prayed that it was all a product of my paranoia. That when I got home, I would find the grandmother and granddaughter eating breakfast peacefully with my passport waiting for me on the table. But I didn't know that what awaited me was not a placid morning, but the beginning of the worst of my nightmares. It was a little past 7 in the morning when the taxi stopped in front of my building. I paid in a hurry and ran toward the elevator. Despite taking a shortcut, the morning rush hour traffic had stolen precious time. Every second I spent in that car felt eternal. When I got out of the elevator on the 12th floor, a draft of cold air in the hallway made my skin crawl. I walked toward the door of my house at the end of the hall where a wooden plaque hung that my husband had put up when we moved in 3 years ago. Layla's happy home. But a few steps from the entrance I stopped dead. The outer metal security door was closed, but the inner wooden door was slightly ajar, and from inside filtered a strange sound, a sound that did not fit at all with a quiet morning. I approached in silence, holding my breath. I tried to put the key in, but I realized it was locked from the inside or blocked with something heavy. I pressed my ear to the crack and listened. The deafening screech of packing tape being torn resonated again and again, mixed with the dull noise of heavy furniture being dragged across the floor. My heart skipped a beat. At that moment, a deep unknown voice broke the silence. Come on, move a little, lady. We don't have all day. This TV is one of the new ones. It's worth a fortune. Pack it carefully. If the screen breaks, I'm deducting it from the price. And that's safe. Do you know the combination or should I call a buddy to crack it? I felt my heart stop. My blood froze in my veins. That man's voice didn't sound like a burglar, but like a merchant haggling over the price of merchandise. Then I heard my mother-in-law's voice. Mama. There was not a trace of the sweetness from the night before. Her tone was harsh and urgent. She's already gone. By now she's already sitting on the plane. But we have to hurry just in case. Hey, call another one of your men to take this sofa first. To pay my debts I have to sell everything. You yourself threatened to cut off my hand if I didn't pay you, you miserable wretch. I'm scared to death. Leaning against the cold metal door, I stood paralyzed, unable to assimilate what I was hearing. All her worry, the roast chicken she had prepared for me with so much care, her words of encouragement, it had all been a farce, a perfect performance to get me out of the house. Her plan was to sell all our furniture and belongings to pay her debts while I was away. But what truly terrified me was not the loss of my material goods, but the absence of my daughter. By this time Isla should be awake, filling the house with her laughter and games. Why couldn't I hear her voice amidst all that commotion? Trying to calm myself, I pressed my ear to the door again, praying that the child was sleeping peacefully in her room. It was then that I heard a very weak sound, almost imperceptible, coming from the master bedroom. A muffled moan, like that of a wounded little animal begging for help with its mouth covered. Tears sprang from my eyes. Fear turned into a sharp pain that squeezed my heart. What have they done to my daughter? What have they done to my Layla? My mother's instinct screamed at me to break down the door and confront them, but a part of my brain, the most rational part, held me back. The man would have accomplices, and my mother-in-law, cornered by debts, was capable of anything. If I acted rashly, they could hurt Isla to eliminate evidence or to escape. I backed away, trembling toward the emergency stairs. In the gloom of the landing, under the flickering light of a motion sensor, I took out my phone with hands soaked in cold sweat. I didn't call my husband anymore. He was too far away. He couldn't help me. I dialed 911. My voice came out broken by sobs. I tried to speak as clearly as possible. Please, there are thieves in my house. My daughter is in danger. Please come quickly. I beg you. After hanging up, I collapsed on the cold steps with my gaze fixed on the door of my house. I felt a scorching fire in my stomach. Every second that passed was like a knife tearing at my soul. The 10 minutes it took for the police to arrive were the longest of my life. Curled up in a corner of the staircase, I strained my ears, terrified that they might do something to Isla or try to escape. The screech of the packing tape continued to sound at regular intervals, like a macabre mockery mixed with the impatient shouts of the man. Finally, I heard the sound of several footsteps coming from the elevator. 2 police officers appeared along with the building superintendent and a member of neighborhood security. Seeing the blue uniforms, I felt the relief of a castaway finding a life preserver. I ran toward them, pointing at my door through tears. It's there. They are in there. My daughter. I can't hear my daughter's voice. One of the officers gestured for me to calm down and approached the door. He banged loudly. Police, open the door. This is an administrative inspection. The noise inside stopped abruptly. The silence that fell over the house was tomb-like. The officer banged again, this time harder and with a more authoritative voice. We know there are people inside. If you do not cooperate, we will be forced to enter by force. There was still no answer. Hiding behind the officers, I clutched my chest, feeling my heart beating wildly, terrified of what they might do. After a third warning with no response, the police decided to force the door. The sound of a crowbar and the blows of a battering ram against the lock resonated loudly in the building hallway. In a matter of minutes, the metal door gave way and then the wooden one was knocked down. I couldn't wait any longer. I ran into the house behind the officers. The scene that unfolded before my eyes made my legs weak. I was about to collapse. My home, the cozy and tidy place I had built with so much care over the years, was now a ruin. The living room was empty. The leather sofa that had cost us so much to buy was disassembled and leaned against a wall. The 65-inch television, the stereo, my work computer, everything had disappeared. In their place were huge boxes sealed with packing tape stacked on top of each other. The floor was covered with pieces of paper and ropes, and Isla's toys were scattered and trampled. In the middle of that chaos stood Mama Ada and an unknown man. My mother-in-law, with a face pale as wax, was trembling, hiding next to the shoe rack. The man, burly with arms covered in tattoos, was carrying one of my designer bags on his shoulder, where he had surely put the money and jewelry he had found. Seeing the police enter, he tried to get rid of the bag, but one of the officers shouted at him, "Freeze! Hands on your head!" I looked at my mother-in-law, the same woman who the night before had served me dinner with so much affection. Now she looked at me with a mixture of terror and pleading, but in my heart there remained not a shred of compassion. I only felt a deep and absolute contempt. The disorder of my house and the theft of my belongings were an evident betrayal. But the most important thing had not yet appeared. I screamed with a hoarse voice that echoed in the room, impregnated with dust and sweat. "Mama Ida, where is Isla? Where have you hidden my daughter?" Her answer was a clumsy string of lies. Avoiding my gaze, she began to stammer, looking everywhere but at me. "Lalu, Isla went out to play. I sent her to the neighbor's house for a little while." "To play," I replied. "At this time of the morning, which neighbor was going to keep the child so early? And if she went out to play, why are her toys destroyed on the floor?" I didn't believe a word. I pushed my mother-in-law's side and began to search the rooms. She wasn't in the living room, nor in the bathroom, nor on the balcony. I ran to the master bedroom, the room where the night before my daughter and I had slept, hugging each other. The curtains were drawn, and the room was in shadows. The bed was messed up, surely because they had looked for valuables. I stopped in the center of the room, holding my breath and straining my ears. And then I heard a strange noise coming from the built-in closet, the large oak closet where I kept the winter comforters. A weak sound, thump, as if someone were hitting the door from inside, accompanied by the same muffled moan I had heard from outside. I felt the blood rush to my head. I ran toward the closet and threw the doors wide open with a violent yank. The image I saw inside was as if someone stabbed me directly in the heart. The pain was so intense I felt like I was going to faint. Isla, my dear 4-year-old daughter, was curled up in a corner of the dark, narrow closet that reeked of mothballs. Her hands were tied behind her back with a phone charger cable, and her mouth was sealed with the same yellow packing tape they used for the boxes. Her eyes, red and bloodshot, were wide open with panic. Her little face was soaked in tears and sweat. Seeing me and seeing the light, she began to move frantically, begging me for help with a desperate look. "Lila, my baby," I screamed as I threw myself on her to hug her. With trembling hands, I removed the tape from her mouth. I tried to do it as gently as possible, but her sensitive skin was already red and irritated. As soon as I freed her mouth, she broke into uncontrollable crying. Her weeping broke my soul into 1,000 pieces. "Mommy, save me. Grandma is bad. She's a bad person." I was so scared. "Mommy." I hurried to untie her hands and hugged her small body, which was trembling uncontrollably with all my might. My tears mixed with hers. The terror I had felt vanished in an instant, giving way to a fury like I had never experienced in my life. I took my daughter in my arms and went out to the living room. Seeing the tattooed man trying to slip out the door, I couldn't hold back anymore. I left Isla on the sofa, ran toward him and blocked his path. When he tried to push me aside, I gathered all my strength and slapped him across the face. The dry sound of the slap echoed throughout the room. "Son of a, how dare you touch my daughter?" The man, stunned, raised his hand to hit me, but the officers pounced on him, immobilized him, and put cold handcuffs on his wrists. Seeing the scene, Mama Ada started screaming and clung to my legs, begging. But to me, at that moment, she was no longer a person. She was a demon who, out of pure greed, had been capable of sacrificing her own blood. I looked at her with eyes burning with hate. "Look what you have done to your granddaughter. Do you still consider yourself a human being?" Seeing herself cornered and without escape, Mama Ada resorted to the usual tactic of those who see no way out, playing the victim. She let herself fall between the stacked boxes and began to hit her thighs, crying loudly. "Oh, how wretched I am. What crime have I committed by selling a few old junk items from my son's house? Why did you call the police? Am I a thief? I did it because I had no money. Because I was desperate," deliberately omitting the fact that she had locked her granddaughter in a closet. She was trying to reduce her crime to a simple family dispute. The handcuffed man from the other sided her with a cunning voice. "Officers, look closely. I own a second-hand store. This lady called me saying her children were moving abroad, and that she was liquidating all the furniture at a good price. I only came to do legal business. How was I supposed to know this was a robbery? I'm innocent." He was trying to dump all the blame on Mama Ada, shamelessly denying that until a moment ago he had been helping her pack and urging her to hurry up. While I hugged my daughter, who continued to sob, I observed the pathetic performance of those two, and couldn't help a bitter smile at such impotence. I addressed the officer, taking notes firmly. "Don't believe a word. This condo is in my name and my husband's name. That woman has no right to sell anything here, and locking a child up tied and gagged is not cleaning house. This is a clear case of illegal detention, child abuse, and organized robbery." The officer nodded and addressed my mother-in-law sternly. "Be quiet, please. Everything will be cleared up at the station. For now, what we have witnessed is how you and this man were attempting to illegally dispose of someone else's property and mistreating a minor. You will have to accompany us to the station." The officer sealed the boxes and collected the evidence. The bag with the money, the packing tape used to tie my daughter. Seeing that the situation was getting serious and her theater wasn't working, Mama Ada changed tactics and looked at me with pleading eyes. Nia, please tell the police to forgive me. I am an old woman. Going to the station is a shame. Those men forced me. They threatened me. Please don't make this bigger. It is a disgrace to the family. Again, the same song, the disgrace to the family, the same stale argument she always used to manipulate me. But this time, seeing the red marks on my daughter's wrists, my heart did not waver for an instant. Tell that to the judge, I replied coldly. When you were putting adhesive tape on your granddaughter's mouth, you didn't think about the disgrace to the family. I turned around and followed the police. The sound of the patrol car siren broke the calm of the morning, taking the culprits to the place where they belonged. While I hugged my daughter just before the elevator doors closed, I took one last look at my house in ruins. That home, full of so many memories, had been desecrated by greed and betrayal. I knew the legal battle awaiting me would be long and hard, but for my daughter, I was willing to go all the way. The air in the interrogation room at the precinct was thick with the smell of stale tobacco and tension. Isla, terrified and exhausted from so much crying, had fallen asleep in my arms. Her little hand clutched my clothes tightly as if she feared I would disappear again. Opposite me, Mama Ada was huddled in a wooden chair with her head down, unable to look anyone in the face. The man with the tattoos had been taken to another room for interrogation. Only the rhythmic sound of typing from the people taking statements broke the silence, hitting my already afraid nerves. I was still in shock. Why had she done it? Was she so bad off that she had to sell her own son's things? And above all, how had she been capable of locking her own granddaughter in a closet? Half an hour later, an officer came out of the room where they were interrogating the man. He held a thin folder in his hand. He sat down in front of me and looking harshly at Mama Ada said, the detainee, owner of a second-hand store and pawn shop, has confessed everything. He stated that it was Ms. Chestnut who contacted him to buy all the furniture and appliances in the house at a very low price, demanding immediate payment in cash. He also admitted that he helped her deal with the child to facilitate moving the items. Hearing this, Mama Ada broke down crying, tears furrowing her wrinkled cheeks. It's a lie. He's lying. I just wanted to sell a few old things to buy them new ones. The officer tapped the table gently and raised his voice. Miss Chestnut, we checked your phone and the gentleman's in your WhatsApp messages. You assured him you had the right to sell everything because it was your children's house. And you even sent photos of your sons and daughter-in-law's IDs. We also found a message that said, "Hurry up. My daughter-in-law has already caught the plane. And tell me, how do you explain the $40,000 in debt we found in your internet history from playing at an illegal online casino?" The figure of $40,000 was like a hammer blow to my head. I looked at my mother-in-law, stunned. That woman who had always been so austere and thrifty, who enjoyed haggling over the price of bread at the market in her small town, was an online gambling addict. Mama, realizing she couldn't deny it anymore, collapsed and confessed with a voice broken by panic. I was stupid. First, I only played for fun, $10 or $20 a game. But I started losing, and the more I lost, the more I wanted to win back the money. The loan sharks threatened me. They came to my house back home. They said they would cut off a hand and humiliate me in front of all the neighbors. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. When Nia told me she was going on a trip, I thought I could sell some things to pay the debt, and that later, working at whatever I could find, I would pay it all back. Her words sent a chill through me. Her sudden kindness, the roast chicken, her rush to get me out of the house, it was all part of her plan. She had planned to turn her son's house into her personal ATM, to pay her gambling debts. What people will say back in her town mattered more to her than the safety of her own granddaughter. Looking at that trembling woman, any glint of compassion I might have had left vanished, leaving only deep contempt. She hadn't just sold our furniture. She had sold her conscience and her humanity at a bargain price. I squeezed my daughter tighter against my chest and made myself a promise. From that moment on, I would never again allow my daughter to spend even a single second near that cruel grandmother. After the initial statement and signing the report, I was able to take my daughter. Leaving the station, the blinding midday light made me dizzy. I sat with Isla on the terrace of a nearby coffee shop, and with trembling hands I called my husband Marcus. This time he answered on the third ring. His voice sounded sleepy and a little irritated, as if I had interrupted his nap. Nia, did you already get to New York? Why are you calling at this time? I was catching a quick nap before going back to the site. Hearing his carefree voice, the tears I had been holding back welled up again. I took a deep breath and tried to speak as calmly as possible. Marcus, listen to me closely. I am not in New York and I am not going. I am at the police station. Your mother has just been arrested for robbery and child abuse. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Marcus let out a little laugh as if I were telling him a joke in bad taste. What are you talking about? Are you delirious or is the jet lag already hitting you? My mother is at the house taking care of Isla. How is she going to be arrested? Besides, with how much she loves the girl. Child abuse? Come on, Nia. Don't exaggerate. I bet she raised her voice to scold her for something, and you're already making a drama out of it. His indifference and blind defense of his mother made my blood boil. He had never believed my complaints about his mother. He always repeated the same phrase, "Girl, my mom is just old-fashioned. She's an innocent countrywoman." I didn't bother arguing. I put the phone on speaker and held it up to the station entrance from where the sound of sirens and an officer reading rights to a detainee could be faintly heard. Listen well and tell me if this is delirium. Your mother has $40,000 in gambling debts. To pay them, she brought some guys to sell all our furniture, and she tied and gagged Isla and put her in a closet. If I hadn't forgotten my passport, right now our house would be empty, and your daughter could have suffocated inside that closet. The commotion heard through the phone left Marcus speechless. He stammered. What are you saying? 40,000 in a closet. Nia, is it true? Is this not a joke? My mother couldn't have done that. I couldn't take it anymore and screamed at the phone. Come here right now. Come and see it with your own eyes. Come see what your innocent and good mother has done. Come see the bruises your daughter has on her wrists. And let one thing be clear to you. This time I am not going to forgive. I am going to see this through to the end. Marcus's voice sounded shaken and nervous. Wait, Nia, calm down. I'm going to ask for a few days off and fly up there right now. Please don't do anything crazy. Don't sign anything. Do you hear me? Wait until I arrive. We are a family. Why do we have to let it get to this? Everything can be fixed. Family. Why did that word sound so empty and painful today? Tired of listening to his excuses, I hung up. Marcus was still the same as always. His first reaction hadn't been to worry about his daughter, but the fear of scandal, the fear that the image of his perfect family, which he bragged about so much, would be stained. I looked at Isla asleep in my lap and swore in silence. From now on, Mommy will be your only shield. Even if the whole world, even your own father, turns their back on you. I returned with Isla to the apartment. The front door destroyed. Hung like a grotesque scar. Upon entering, a desolate cold hit me in the face, in stark contrast to the radiant sun shining outside. Although the police had finished the inspection, the boxes they hadn't had time to remove were still stacked in the middle of the living room, like tombstones mocking my false happiness. The floor was full of muddy footprints from strangers, and pieces of broken styrofoam floated in the air. My home, every vase, every tablecloth chosen and cared for with so much love, now seemed like the scene of a hurricane. I laid Isla in the bed in her room, the only room the criminals hadn't had time to touch, and which kept its original look. The sleeping child shuddered from time to time, as if having a nightmare, and whispered, "Mommy, don't go." I felt my heart breaking into a million pieces. I carefully rolled up her pajama sleeve and saw on her brown skin the bruised and reddish marks left by the charger cable. On her cheeks, the glue from the adhesive tape had left a red irritation. With a cloth and warm water, I gently cleaned her face and hands. My tears fell into the bowl of water. Every wound on my daughter's body was a sentence against my naivety and my blind faith in people. If I had been a little more cautious, if I hadn't let myself be blinded by ambition, my daughter wouldn't have had to go through this horror. When Isla fell into a deep sleep, I started taking inventory of the damages for the additional report I had to submit to the police. The living room was empty. The television, the stereo, and the air purifier were packed in boxes. I went to the bedroom and saw that the safe embedded in a corner had been ripped from the wall. The lock was full of scratches, proof that the man had tried to force it with a screwdriver. Luckily, the police had arrived before he succeeded. With trembling hands, I entered the combination. The heavy door opened. Inside were the house deeds, the bank books, and the wooden box with the gold jewelry my mother had given me for the wedding. I sighed in relief. But then something caught my attention. The small inner drawer of the safe, where I kept some cash and costume jewelry, was messy. I always ordered the bills by value, but now the stack of $50 bills seemed thinner and wasn't where I remembered it. Did my mother-in-law know the combination from before, or had Marcus given it to her? A new and sharp suspicion began to grow in my mind. I closed the safe, deciding I would investigate later. The most important thing now was to clean up that battlefield, so that when my daughter woke up, she wouldn't have to relive the horror. I cleaned the house crying. My salty tears fell to the floor, mixing with the dust while I tried to erase the remains of my ruined marriage. The clock struck midnight when the sound of the door opening startled me. It was Marcus. He walked into the house looking haggard. His clothes were wrinkled and his eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep and worry. Seeing the disastrous state of the living room, he stopped for an instant and then quickly approached me where I was sitting on the sofa. I expected him to run to the room to see how his daughter was or to hug me and ask for forgiveness, but no. His first words were, "Nia, how is Mom? Are they treating her well at the station? Did you drop the charges?" I looked at my husband, the man I had loved and trusted for years. In that moment he seemed like a complete stranger. In his eyes there was only concern for his gambling-addicted mother. The suffering of his wife and daughter didn't seem to matter to him at all. I let out a bitter laugh, and with a coldness that surprised me, I said to him, "Aren't you worried about knowing if your daughter is alive or dead? From what I see, your mother is your only priority, and your daughter matters less to you than a rock in the road." Marcus stepped back startled and hurried to excuse himself. "No, it's not that. What I mean is that Isla must have been scared. But kids forget things quickly. But my mother, with how old she is, if they put her in jail, what a shame for the family. Nia, please. This is our business. Let's fix it in private. Drop the charges. After all, everything is here. We haven't lost anything." "We haven't lost anything?" I jumped up and shouted in his face. "Open your eyes and look at the state of the house. Go see the bruises your daughter has on her wrists. And you call this fixing it in private? Do you think your mother considers me family? No. To her, I am just an ATM to get money for her gambling debts. She owes $40,000. How do you plan to fix that? Are you going to sell the house to pay your mother's debts?" Marcus lowered his head and grabbed his hair, anguished. "It was a mistake. Mom made a mistake. Anyone can make a mistake. You don't know how much she had to fight to raise me alone. Now that she's in trouble, if I don't help her, who will? I promise you, Nia, I swear I will work day and night to pay her debts. I won't let you or Isla lack anything. But please, for what you love most, sign a settlement agreement so at least they reduce her sentence. If my mother goes to jail, what will become of me? How will I be able to live knowing I am a bad son?" I looked at Marcus with deep disappointment. He was so weak and blind that he was incapable of distinguishing right from wrong. He was defending an atrocity in the name of filial loyalty. I let myself fall into a chair exhausted. "If you want to be a good son, do whatever you want. But let me be clear. I am not signing any agreement. The person who dared to lay a hand on my daughter is going to pay for so hard for you to live as a bad son. Pack your bags and go back down south with your mother." Marcus looked at me stunned. Surely he didn't expect his wife, normally so submissive and understanding, to show herself so firm and decided. The next morning, while I was giving Isla breakfast, the phone rang. It was the detective from the station. He told me that during the search of Mama Ida's belongings, they had found important evidence, and that I needed to go to the station urgently to identify it. I asked my kind neighbor next door, the only person who had testified in my favor the day before, to watch the child for a moment, and I left in a hurry. In the interrogation room, the officer put my mother-in-law's old worn purse on the table. I recognized it instantly. It was the one she always used to go to the market. But when I saw what he took out from inside, I felt my legs trembling. The first thing that appeared was a necklace and several gold rings. They were the ones I had missed from my dresser drawer, the ones I didn't keep in the safe, but the next thing he took out left me frozen. I felt the blood drain from my body. It was a document with a blue cover, The property deed to our condo. I couldn't believe my eyes. I picked it up and opened it. There, clear and sharp, were my name and Marcus's name. I remembered perfectly having put that document in the deepest part of the safe. How had it gotten into my mother-in-law's purse? And that's not all, Mrs. Chestnut, the officer said quietly. Among the papers we also found this. He handed me a sheet of paper. It was a power of attorney typed on a computer. In it, my husband and I granted Mama full powers to sell, transfer, or mortgage our condo. At the bottom, my signature and Marcus were forged, imitated quite successfully. Miss Chestnut has confessed that her intention was to mortgage the house deeds to get a loan of $300,000. She hired someone to forge the signatures. Her plan was, after selling all the furniture, to mortgage the house immediately. If you had taken a little longer to return, this house would no longer be yours. I left the power of attorney on the table. I felt nauseous. I thought she was a simple petty thief, intending to sell the TV and the fridge to pay her gambling debts. But no, her ambition was much greater. She intended to sell her own granddaughter's home to keep betting in an online casino. How can a mother, a grandmother, come to think of snatching the house from her own children and granddaughter? I left the station, clutching the deeds to my house. I felt an enormous weight in my heart. The Chicago sky was overcast as if it were going to unleash a storm at any moment. I thought of Marcus. Did he know all this? Or did he still naively believe that his mother only intended to sell a couple of old junk items? The news of Mama Ida's arrest spread like wildfire through their hometown. In a single day, my phone didn't stop ringing with calls from my husband's relatives. I didn't answer any, but the text messages, which were practically curses, kept coming. You're a witch, putting your mother-in-law in jail. You're destroying our family. They ignored or preferred to ignore that Mama Ada had locked her granddaughter in a closet and tried to sell our house. For them, there only existed an old morality according to which children should not judge the faults of their parents. My act of reporting my mother-in-law to the police was, in their eyes, an unforgivable crime. Marcus thought the same. He spent the night in a diner near the station and came back home in the morning. His haggard appearance inspired a little pity in me. But as soon as he opened his mouth, that feeling vanished. Instead of asking me if I had eaten or if the child was okay, he showed me his phone with a message from his uncle. Look at this. My uncle says if you don't drop the charges today, he's cutting us off in our town. Reputation is everything. Nia, I know my mother made a mistake, but these things are fixed within the family. If we take it to court, what will become of our honor? Marcus begged me with a tone of reproach, as if I were the guilty one in the whole problem. I let out a sarcastic laugh and threw the house deeds and the forged power of attorney in his face. And do you know what your mother intended to do with the honor of this family? She wanted to mortgage this house for $300,000. Look at this. She forged my signature and yours. If I had come back one day later, the three of us would have been on the street. Do you think then your uncle would have given us a plate of food? He would have called us fools and laughed at us. Marcus picked up the power of attorney and his face went pale as paper. He stammered. My mother really wanted to, but his weakness, rooted to the bone, quickly found an excuse. Surely she did it in a moment of desperation. Cornered by debts. I don't think she wanted to sell the house for real. Surely she thought she'd mortgage it for a while and then get it back when she had money. Nia, after all, nothing happened. The house is still ours. If you get so stubborn, you're only going to lose out. If you reach an agreement now, I promise you my mother won't step foot in Chicago again. I'll keep her controlled back home. Please, for me, forgive her just this once. The pressure from my husband, the insults from his relatives, everything crashed down on my broken heart like a raging tide. I felt terribly alone. My husband's entire family had turned against me, pressuring me to forget the atrocity I had just suffered. In the name of morality and family, they demanded I swallow all that injustice. That night, the tension in the house was unbearable. Isla was sleeping, but occasionally sobbed in her dreams. Marcus wouldn't stop going in and out of the balcony, smoking one cigarette after another. The ashtray was overflowing. Finally, unable to stand my silence, he came in and suddenly knelt before me. His gesture surprised me so much I stepped back. The strong man and head of the family was now crying like a child. Nia, I beg you. I ask you on my knees. Please save my mother. She is an old woman. Can you imagine how she's going to suffer in jail? If something happened to her in there, I would regret it my whole life. I know she made a mistake, that she committed a very big error, but she is the woman who gave me life. I haven't been able to pay back everything she's done for me yet. And now I'm going to be the one putting her in jail. How am I going to be able to live with that? Marcus clung to my legs, crying openly, and began telling me stories of his childhood, of how hard his mother had fought to raise him alone after his father died. He was trying to appeal to my compassion. I swear, Nia, I'll work 2-3 jobs if necessary to pay her debts. I won't let you or I lack anything. Please just sign a paper, a plea deal. We have to protect Isla's grandma. Keep the family together. If my mother goes to jail and we divorce, what will become of Isla? Don't you really care? Just at that moment, Isla, who had woken up, came out of her room, seeing her father on his knees on the floor crying. She got scared and started crying too, hugging his neck. Daddy, don't cry. What's wrong? Mommy, don't scold Daddy. Seeing my husband and daughter hugging, crying broke my heart. I hated Marcus and his mother with all my soul. But seeing my daughter's innocent face, my determination wavered. I was a mother too. I wanted my daughter to grow up with the love of her father and mother. Marcus's promise seemed sincere, and a man's tears moved my firm resolution. What if I give him one last chance? What if I forgive him one more time? Thinking this, the hand with which I was mentally holding the divorce papers began to tremble. All right, get up. You're going to scare the child. I sighed and helped Marcus stand up. I'll think about it, but let me be clear. I'm doing it for Isla, not for your mother. Hearing my words, Marcus rejoiced as if he had won the lottery and thanked me again and again. While I watched him calm the child and take her back to bed, my mind was chaos. I didn't know if I was making the right decision. The next morning, Marcus, unlike other days, got up early, made breakfast, and started cleaning the house, urging me to write the settlement agreement and present it to the court in the afternoon. His impatience annoyed me a little, but since I had already promised I would think about it, I sat at the desk and picked up a pen. I put the pen on the blank paper. The word agreement weighed on me like a slab. I started writing a few lines. I, Nyan, as the wife of the son of the accused, Ida Chestnut, state that we have reached an amicable agreement, and I do not wish for criminal proceedings to proceed against her. Every word I wrote was like a stab to my pride. But what am I doing? Forgiving the person who hurt my daughter. Ding dong. A message notification sounded on my phone. It was a message from the bank. I thought it would be spam or a fee notice and looked at it without giving it importance. But the numbers appearing on the lock screen left me paralyzed. A charge of $3,000 has been made to your account ending in XXX. Merchant Perez jewelry payment via card. $3,000 at a jewelry store. I froze. That card was a family card I had made for Marcus 3 months ago, so he could pay expenses at the worksite. The limit was $5,000. I had the main card and he had the additional one, but Marcus was right there running the mop in front of me. Marcus, I called him with a sharp tone. Give me the credit card I gave you. Marcus jumped. His face changed color and he began to stutter. I have it in my wallet. Where did I leave my wallet? Wait, let me look for it. I didn't wait. I opened the banking app and checked the transactions. Transaction time today at 9:15 in the morning. Location, Perez Jewelry. I reviewed the transactions from the last few days. My God. ATM withdrawals, payments at electronic stores, digital wallet top-ups. The total spending amounted to almost $4,000. All transactions had been made during the last week while I was busy preparing for my trip. I showed the phone to Marcus, trembling. Explain this to me. Who bought gold with your card? Who spent almost the entire limit of the card in the last week? Who did you give the card to? Marcus, his face pale as wax, dropped the mop he held in his hands. He could barely speak. It's just that a few days ago, Mom told me she needed the card to buy some things for Isla, and I gave it to her. I guess it was her. Your mother is in a holding cell. How is she going to buy gold? I shouted, throwing the phone on the table. She gave it to one of her accomplices. It was all planned. Before she was arrested, she gave it to someone else to withdraw whatever money was left. It was money from the credit card I was paying with the sweat of my brow. Mama Ida wasn't alone. She had accomplices. She had tricked her weak son into giving her the credit card. She had spent money hand over fist and even while in the cell had finished the play by buying $3,000 in gold that very morning. It was as if she had slapped me from jail. While rage over the credit card fraud consumed me, a terrible feeling ran down my back. If Mama Ada has the audacity to buy gold with my card from the cell, and if she tried to force the safe, is everything really safe inside? If Marcus gave the card to his mother, wouldn't he have also given her the key to the safe? Although the safe wasn't forced open, the memory of the messy cash drawer from the day before unsettled me. I pushed Marcus aside and ran like a mad woman to the bedroom. I opened the safe and took out a dark red lacquered wooden box from the deepest part. Inside were the 5 gold bars my mother, with money she had saved all her life and the sale of a small plot of land back home, had given me for the wedding. My mother always told me, "Child, a woman must always have an emergency fund to protect herself." These 5 bars were my talisman, the hope I kept for Isla's future. I opened the lid of the box. The 5 bars in their transparent plastic cases shone with an intense golden color. I sighed in relief, but then I realized something. Why does the plastic of the case look so old and wrinkled? I picked up one of the bars and didn't feel the familiar weight. It was too light, suspiciously light. I put the bar up to the light. The serial number was the same, but the golden shine on the edges wasn't as deep and sharp as real gold. It looked a bit faded. My heart was beating, ready to burst. I turned and looked at Marcus, who was standing in the doorway, pale as a ghost. "Marcus, come here and look at this," I said with a trembling voice but trying to stay calm. Marcus hesitated, not daring to enter. His scared attitude confirmed my suspicions. I didn't wait any longer. I grabbed the box of bars, put on my sneakers and ran out. "Watch Isla. I'm going to the jewelry store around the corner for a moment." I ran like crazy to the jewelry store near my house. The owner was surprised to see me. I put the box on the glass counter and panting said, "Please tell me if this is real gold." The jeweler, seeing my face of anguish, put on magnifying glasses and began to examine the bars one by one. She scratched the edge of one slightly and put a drop of liquid on it. A light white foam appeared and the scratch mark turned a dark blue color. The woman sighed and looked at me with pity. "Nia, this is fake. It's copper-plated in 24-karat gold. The counterfeits these days are so good that to the naked eye it's very difficult to distinguish them." I felt the world coming down on me. The street noise became a distant hum. Fake. The 5 bars. My mother's sweat and tears. My hope. Everything had turned into a pile of worthless copper. I grabbed the edge of the counter to keep from falling. This wasn't something recent. It hadn't been an impulsive act. How long have Mama Ida and maybe Marcus been planning to switch the bars? I let out a bitter laugh. How stupid I had been to get angry about the $3,000 on the credit card. I had been losing everything for a long time without realizing it. I went back home dragging my feet as if wearing shackles. The front door was ajar, and inside reigned a spooky silence. Marcus was sitting on the sofa with his face in his hands like a prisoner awaiting his sentence. I entered without saying anything and threw the fake gold bars on the glass table. The dull metallic sound broke the silence. "Speak. Since when?" I asked with a hoarse voice without strength even to scream. Marcus slowly lifted his head, but didn't dare look me in the eye. He murmured with a voice that could barely be heard, "Nia, I'm sorry. Really, I'm sorry. It was over a year ago. Over a year ago I stood paralyzed. For the last year, I had been living with a thief in my own house. My mother came saying she had gotten into a $20,000 debt with illegal betting, and she was going to kill herself. I was afraid to tell you because I knew you'd get mad. She asked me for the key to the safe. She swore she would only borrow it for a while to pay the debt, and that as soon as she had money, she would return it. And she gave me these fake bars to switch them in case you decided to look." Listening to Marcus's words, I felt a wave of disgust. The man I had trusted, the one I had given the key to my safe, had conspired with his mother to trick me in such a vile way. How many times must he have laughed at my stupidity while watching me clean that box of gold with so much affection during spring cleaning? "Do you know that this gold is the money my mother saved going hungry all her life?" I screamed, grinding my teeth in rage. "It's the money my mother got selling her land so her daughter wouldn't be looked down upon in her new family. And you and your mother used it as your personal wallet to pay gambling debts. What kind of person are you? You are an accomplice, a scammer. Marcus knelt and clung to my legs. Again the same old story. I'm sorry. I did wrong. In that moment I only thought about saving my mother. I also lived every day with the fear that you would find out. I wanted to earn money to put the real gold back, but as soon as I paid one debt, my mother had already gotten into another. I didn't know what to do, Nia. I pushed him away with a kick. His pathetic and weak appearance didn't inspire pity in me, but deep contempt. A 32-year-old man who, instead of correcting his mother's bad habits, stole from his own wife to give to her. He didn't deserve to be my husband. He didn't deserve to be Layla's father. The truth about the fake gold was the straw that broke the camel's back, the definitive blow that ended any glimmer of doubt I might have had left. On the table was the settlement agreement I had started writing in the morning. The words, "I do not wish for criminal proceedings to proceed," seemed to mock me. I picked up the paper. Just a few hours ago, I had naively thought about being compassionate, about protecting my family for the sake of my daughter. But now that I knew their true face, I couldn't continue down that path. Misunderstood compassion only serves to feed evil. If I forgave them this time, who assured me that next time they wouldn't sell the house? Or even my daughter and me? Rip. I tore the agreement to shreds and threw it in the trash. Marcus, seeing my gesture, was horrified. "Nia, what are you doing? Have you gone crazy? If you break the agreement, what will become of my mother? Your mother will have to face justice for what she has done," I replied coldly. I went to the office and turned on the computer and printer. The whir of the printer sounded like the gears of fate setting in motion. 5 minutes later, I came out with 2 freshly printed sheets of paper. I put them on the table next to the fake gold bars. The bold title jumped out at Marcus. "Divorce petition." "Sign," I said dryly, pushing a pen toward him. "I cannot continue living with a family of scammers. You chose your mother. You chose that blind loyalty. I choose my daughter. I have to get her out of this swamp." Marcus took the paper with trembling hands. His face reened and then went pale. "Divorce? You want to divorce me over this nonsense? I asked you on my knees. I promised you it won't happen again. Do you really want to break this family? This family broke the day your mother put packing tape on my daughter's mouth. The day you gave her the key to the safe," I shouted, losing my temper. "Don't come to me with moral lessons. You are the worst husband one could have. You have been deceiving me for over a year. You allowed your mother to steal from your wife and daughter. With what face do you talk to me about protecting the family?" Marcus' pleading look transformed into an expression of rage and desperation. He realized his crocodile tears no longer worked. I was no longer the docile and submissive woman from before. Faced with the danger my daughter ran and the humiliation suffered, any woman would have become strong. This divorce petition wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was my declaration of war against his entire family. Seeing that I wouldn't yield, Marcus showed his true face. His cornered cowardice turned into the petty aggression of a loser. He crumpled the divorce petition, threw it on the floor and sneered. "You want a divorce? Fine, but you're not taking Isla. Isla is a very loved granddaughter in our family. I will keep custody. We'll see who the judge agrees with." His brazenness left me speechless. With what right do you intend to raise a child? You are drowning in debt and your mother is in jail. You yourself are an accomplice to fraud. Do you think a judge would trust a child to someone in your situation? Marcus lifted his head arrogantly. "Don't speak so lightly. This house is in both our names. So if we divorce, we split it. When we sell the house and pay the mortgage, you will also find yourself on the street without a house and with a miserable salary. I, on the other hand, have my parents' land back home. I can prove I have better conditions than you to raise the child. Besides, you are an evil woman who put her mother-in-law in jail. I'm going to tell your true story on all the mom forums. Who do you think people are going to criticize?" Marcus's threat was like a bucket of cold water. He intended to label me as a heartless daughter-in-law to sink me socially and force me to yield. He knew my weak point was Isla, and he was willing to use his own daughter as a hostage to save his mother. "You are truly miserable," I said, trembling with rage, pointing my finger at him. "I don't care about being miserable if that saves my mother," he replied. He slapped my hand away, went into the bedroom and slammed the door. Not without shouting one last chilling warning. You better start thinking about dropping the charges against my mother. If not, I won't be responsible for what happens, and forget about seeing your daughter again." The spacious living room became suffocating. I let myself fall into a chair and held my head. I knew Marcus was bluffing, but the idea of facing a long legal battle, of fighting for custody of my daughter with the man I once loved and having to endure people's criticism gave me chills. From the bedroom, I heard Isla move in bed. Her rhythmic breathing was the only thread keeping me standing. I got up, went to her room, and lay down silently next to her. Mommy is going to fight Isla. Even if the whole world turns their back on me, I won't let anyone, especially those demons, take you from my side. As expected, the next morning, an anonymous post appeared on a popular local moms forum with thousands of members. The title was sensationalist. Evil daughter-in-law sets trap for mother-in-law to keep house and puts her in jail. The content was a string of lies. It said a poor old lady had gone to her son's house to clean because she missed her granddaughter, that she had broken an object by accident, and that her daughter-in-law had accused her of theft and called the police. The text was accompanied by a photo of Mama Ada curled up and crying inconsolably and hundreds of malicious comments against me. Marcus, just as he had promised, was attacking me in the vilest way possible, turning me into the villain of the story. I read every comment, crying helplessly. But I knew it wasn't time to cry. The truth was only one, and I had irrefutable proof. I decided not to stay silent. I posted a long text on my social media and on the same forum, accompanied by undeniable evidence. I didn't use emotional language. I limited myself to exposing the facts with serenity. First, a photo of the bruises on Isla's arm, along with the medical report specifying multiple contusions from external trauma and bindings. Next, a video from the hallway security cameras. In it, the man with tattoos and Mama Ida were clearly seen taking huge boxes into the elevator. Afla no trace. And finally a photo of the house deeds and the power of attorney with the forged signatures the police had seized. My post was like an atomic bomb that pulverized all of Marcus' lies. The internet users sensitive to truth and justice changed sides immediately. The anger diverted from me toward the cruel mother-in-law and the lousy husband. Look at that child's arm. How horrible. How can a grandmother do something so inhumane? The mother-in-law tries to sell the house and the husband covers for her. Stay away from those people. Don't give in. Fight to the end. Even my neighbors started talking. They testified they had heard strange noises and that Mama Ida's behavior had seemed suspicious. They told how good and hardworking I was. Public opinion flipped in a matter of hours, and a wave of support for me and condemnation for Marcus's family flooded the web. Marcus quickly deleted his post and made his social media private, but it was already too late. His family's true face had been exposed. Once calmer, I looked for a law firm. I found a strong and experienced lawyer, a specialist in divorce and criminal law. Sitting in her office, I told her everything from Mama Ada locking her granddaughter up and selling my things to the fake gold fraud and her plan to sell the house. As I spoke, the lawyer's face hardened. She meticulously reviewed the evidence I presented, took off her glasses and looking me straight in the eye said, "Nia, this is not a simple family dispute. Your mother-in-law's acts constitute several very serious crimes." With a firm tone, she began to analyze the charges one by one. First, tying the child, gagging her, and locking her in a closet is a crime of child abuse, false imprisonment and child endangerment. Second, selling the household goods is a crime of burglary. Third, forging a power of attorney to try to mortgage the house is a crime of document forgery and attempted fraud. And finally, the use of your credit card to buy gold worth $3,000 added to the rest of the charges constitutes a crime of fraud or identity theft. Hearing her sent a shiver through me. I thought she was simply a greedy and cruel woman, but I didn't imagine she had committed so many crimes. And regarding your husband, Marcus, continued the lawyer, he knew his mother had switched the gold and hid it, helping her cover up the crime. If it is proven he benefited from that money, he could be accused of being an accomplice to fraud or concealment, which also carries criminal liability. The lawyer's confident words gave me immense strength. I wasn't alone in this fight. The law would be the scale of justice that would judge the wicked. I entrusted the lawyer with both the criminal case and the divorce petition. I wanted Marcus and his mother to pay a high price for the damage they had done to my daughter and me. A few days later, at the court's request, I had to go to the detention center for a confrontation. Marcus was also there, but he didn't dare look me in the face. He kept his head down at all times. Seeing Mama Ada again in the interrogation room, she was no longer the haughty mother-in-law I knew. She was haggard and consumed. Her hair had turned completely white, and she wore a prison uniform that was too big for her. As soon as she saw Marcus, she broke down crying and tried to take his hand, but an officer stopped her. "Marcus, my son, get me out of here. This is hell, son," she screamed desperately. Marcus looked at her with an expression of pain, unable to do anything. He shot me a pleading look, but I remained seated with an icy expression. My lawyer began the interrogation with incisive questions. She presented irrefutable evidence. The statement of the gold purchase with the credit card, the forged power of attorney. Cornered, Mama Ada admitted the facts, but kept blaming the loan sharks for pressuring her. Near the end of the interrogation, Mama Ada suddenly raised her head and looked at me with hatred. In her eyes there was no longer pleading, but deep resentment and a curse. "I didn't know you were such a viper. I am your mother-in-law, the woman who brought your husband into the world, and you dare put me in jail. Life will pay you back. Your daughter will do the same to you." Hearing her curse my daughter, the rage I had been holding back exploded. I jumped up, approached the glass partition separating us, and looking her straight in the eye I snapped, "Shut up! You have no right to even pronounce my daughter's name. It was you who with your own hands put packing tape on her mouth and locked her in a dark closet to buy time and pay your debts. If anyone deserves divine punishment, it is you. I am not the one who put you in jail. It was your own greed and cruelty that brought you here. Spend the rest of your life repenting in that cell." I left the interrogation room, leaving behind Mama Ida's screams and insults and Marcus' deep sigh. I no longer felt any guilt. Misdirected compassion is a sin. For people like her, jail was the fairest punishment. Leaving the detention center, Marcus looked like a lost soul. He leaned against the wall, slid down to the floor, and covering his face with his hands, began to cry like a child. People passing by looked at him sideways, but he no longer cared about keeping up appearances. The reality, jobless with his mother in jail, about to divorce and drowning in debt, had destroyed him. In a few days, rumors had spread through Marcus's company. The controversy on social media, his frequent absences, and his involvement in his mother's gambling debts led the company to fire him. The brilliant future of a promising construction engineer had been cut short, stained by unemployment and disgrace. "Nia," Marcus said to me with a hoarse voice, looking up with bloodshot eyes, "I've lost everything. My job, my mother, and now you and I. I'm sorry. I truly am sorry. I should have listened to you from the beginning. I was blinded by that stupid idea of loyalty." Looking at him, I didn't feel the satisfaction of victory, but deep sadness. His repentance came too late. It couldn't erase the wounds in my heart, nor the scars that had been engraved on Isla's soul. "Marcus," I said with a calm that surprised me, "the price of weakness and complicity with evil is always high. You weren't a bad person, but you have been the worst husband and the worst father. You didn't know how to protect your little family from the person you kept closest. You chose your mother, so now face the consequences with her. Isla and I need a quiet life without deception or fear." I left him there, collapsed, and got into the taxi my lawyer had called. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Marcus's figure becoming smaller and more desolate under the scorching afternoon sun. I knew his life was entering a path of thorns, but it was a path he himself had chosen. I had to keep going. Before me opened my daughter's future, the light at the end of a tunnel I had to find myself. On the day of the first trial, torrential rain fell over Chicago. It was a rain announcing the end of summer. A rain that seemed to clean the city's dust, but could not erase the filth that had stained my husband's family. I entered the court accompanied by my lawyer and my mother, who had come from down south to support me. Mama Ada, escorted by 2 guards, was led to the defendant's bench. The barely 2 months of preventive detention had aged her 10 years. Her hair was completely white and her back hunched. She didn't lift her head, especially passing the public area where I was seated. Marcus sat on the witness bench with fists so clenched his knuckles had turned white. Quite a few of his relatives had also come, but no one looked at me with resentment or insulted me anymore. The truth was too evident, and the prosecutor's forceful reading was like a slap to all those who once defended evil. The trial heated up with the interrogation of the accomplices. The pawn shop owner and his henchmen, to reduce their sentences, confessed everything, dumping all the guilt on Mama. "Your Honor," declared the pawn shop owner with a clear voice, "I am a dealer in second-hand items. Miss Chestnut called me several times saying her daughter-in-law had left home and she needed money urgently, so she wanted to sell all the furniture. At first I doubted because everything seemed very new. But she insisted and rushed me, telling me if I removed everything by morning, she would give it to me for a laughable price. She even bragged that she had the house deeds, and as soon as she sold the furniture, she was going to mortgage it for $300,000. The administrator of the illegal online casino, who had been arrested in another operation and appeared as a witness, also stated that the accused, Ida Chestnut, was a VIP client of the site and used to deposit large amounts of money, especially in the early morning. Despite having lost a lot of money, she asked for loans left and right to try to recover her losses. Once she even sent a message to the site administrator telling him to wait a few days, that she would soon sell her son's house. Their raw testimonies completely destroyed the image Mama Ada had tried to create of herself, that of a poor old lady from the country, ignorant of the world, who had made a mistake. No one had forced her. It was her own greed and gambling addiction that turned her into the mastermind of a plan to rob her own son. A murmur of surprise ran through the room. The relatives who once defended her now lowered their heads in shame. The truth exposed showed how fragile human morality can be, leaving everyone dismayed. The most tense moment arrived when the judge ordered the projection of the youngest victim's statement, Layla. To spare the child additional trauma, the court decided not to make her appear, and instead show the recording of the interview a child psychologist had conducted along with a detective. On the large screen in the center of the room appeared the small figure of Isla curled up on a sofa, hugging her teddy bear tightly. Her childish and trembling voice through the speakers stabbed into the hearts of everyone present. "I was sleeping and Grandma came in. She told me we were going to play hide and seek and I had to be very quiet. She tied my hands with a rope and it hurt a lot. When I told her I wanted to see Mommy, she covered my mouth with tape. She told me, 'If you keep crying, I'm going to leave you in the street. Your mommy went to New York and isn't coming back.' Grandma put me in a dark closet. I was very scared of the boogeyman. I couldn't breathe well. I thought I was going to die." During the recording, the child didn't stop sobbing, eyes full of panic, as if she were reliving that terrible moment. Absolute silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of some sobs. My mother next to me couldn't hold back tears, and squeezed my hand tightly, trembling with sorrow for her granddaughter. Even one of the jury members had to discreetly wipe away a tear. Marcus, sitting on the bench, buried his head on the table, and his shoulders shook. His inconsolable crying resonated in the silence of the room. It was the cry of late repentance, the pain of a man realizing his weakness had pushed his own daughter into hell. Mama in the defendant's bench trembled from head to toe, clutching the wooden railing with a distorted face. Perhaps it was in that moment, hearing from her granddaughter's own voice the account of her crime, that she finally understood the magnitude of her cruelty. The conscience she had lost at virtual gambling tables now stabbed her with a dull knife. After a recess, the court reconvened. Everyone present stood up, waiting in silence for the final sentence. The judge, with a solemn and firm voice, began to read the verdict. He highlighted that the accused acts not only attacked property, but constituted a serious violation of human dignity and children's rights. The accused acted in an organized and premeditated manner, abusing her family's trust. In addition to crimes of burglary and fraud, she mistreated a 4-year-old girl, causing her severe physical and psychological suffering. Although the accused's advanced age and confession are taken into account as mitigating factors, the gravity of the facts makes the imposition of a severe penalty inevitable. Therefore, this court sentences the accused Ida Chestnut for the crimes of burglary, fraud, and child abuse to a penalty of 7 years in prison. Likewise, the accused must compensate the victim for the total value of the credit card usage and the stolen gold. Bang! The strike of the judge's gavel put an end to a woman's life of greed. Hearing the sentence, Mama Ada's legs failed her, and she fainted. The court guards had to carry her out. Marcus, petrified, watched the scene without moving, staring at his mother's back. The other accomplices were sentenced to between 3 and 5 years in prison. Justice had been served. Leaving the courthouse, I breathed deeply. The fresh damp air after the rain filled my lungs. I felt the heavy burden that had oppressed me for the last months lighten. I knew it would be difficult to recover all the lost money, that the heart's wounds would take time to heal, but at least those who had done evil had paid for it. I looked at the gray sky where a ray of sun was beginning to peek through and whispered, "Lila, we are safe now." A week after the criminal trial, Marcus and I met again in family court for divorce mediation. He no longer had the arrogance from before. He no longer threatened to take custody. He hadn't shaved and looked 10 years older. His mother's conviction, his firing, and his current financial situation had made him understand he had no right to claim custody of Isla. The agreement was quick. Marcus signed the divorce, ceded custody of the child to me, and waived spousal support. The most complex issue, the division of assets, that is the condo that was in both our names, was resolved with the decision to sell it and split the money. However, Marcus' share was no longer his. As soon as it was known the house was being sold, his mother's loan sharks and the bank showed up to collect their debts. His half barely covered part of his mother's debts and court costs. The day he left the house, I saw Marcus put a couple of changes of clothes in an old suitcase. He didn't look at me. He packed in silence. This house had been our dream. The place we had built brick by brick, plate by plate with all our love. Now we had to sell it to pay the price of an irreparable mistake. Nia. Marcus called me hesitantly by the elevator. "I'm sorry. I know apologizing now is useless, but please take good care of Isla. Don't instill hate in her toward her father and grandmother. Let her grow up like a normal girl." I looked at the man who had once been everything to me and felt a bitter compassion. "Don't worry, I'm not that petty. I will teach her to distinguish right from wrong, but I won't teach her to hate. Hate only poisons yourself. Go and try to rebuild your life. Don't destroy it like your mother did." Marcus nodded and turned around. His figure, hunched and hesitant, disappeared behind the elevator doors. I stood there crying in silence. The divorce wasn't a victory. It was a painful liberation. I had lost a family, but in exchange I had saved my daughter's future. When one door closes, another opens. I wanted to believe that. After selling the house, I spent the weekend moving. The spacious condo, which was once my pride, now seemed empty and cold to me. I decided to get rid of all the furniture stained by betrayal and painful memories. I only packed Isla's clothes, books, and toys. I didn't want to take anything that reminded me of the dark past. My parents, who came up from the south, brought me a bunch of food, rice, eggs, greens. Seeing my elderly parents soaked in sweat, silently helping me with the move, I couldn't hold back tears. My father, a man of few words, patted me on the shoulder and said, "Things get lost, but people remain. As long as we have you, everything is all right. The new place will be smaller, but we'll be together. When you come back from work, you'll have a hot plate of food, and your mother and I will watch Isla. What more can you ask for?" I rented a small 2-bedroom apartment near Isla's new daycare in my job. The new place was half the size of the previous one. It didn't have a big balcony or luxury furniture, but it was full of the warmth of family love. The first night in the new house, the smell of the catfish my mother had fried and my father's voice teaching Isla to count filled the small space. I understood that a home doesn't need to be big. It only needs to be warm inside, even if the storm roars outside. I fell asleep on the floor on a new comforter, hugging my daughter. Deep peace invaded me. There were no more calculations or fear of loss. The most important thing was that there were no fake people around me anymore. After a month of leave that felt like a storm, I returned to work. The trip to New York, of course, had been canceled, and I assumed I had lost the chance for promotion. Entering the office, I prepared myself for my colleagues' whispers, but to my surprise, they received me with looks of compassion and encouragement. The HR manager discreetly left a cup of coffee on my desk with a note that said, "Stay strong. Everything will pass." The company director called me to his office. He was a man who valued transparency and integrity above all else. "Nia, I am very sorry for what you have had to go through in your personal life. However, I am deeply impressed by the way you have handled this crisis with firmness, determination, and respecting the law. The company needs talent with your strength. The head of marketing position is still waiting for you, not because of the trip to New York, but because of the excellent work you have demonstrated over the last year. Do you accept? I stood frozen. I felt my eyes fill with tears. I thought the door to my career had closed, but fate had been fair. It had taken away the worst of husbands, but it had returned the professional recognition I deserved. I nodded and promised myself I would work twice as hard to live up to his trust. The first few nights Isla had nightmares and screamed, "Don't tie my hands." I had to take her to a child psychologist every week. But thanks to her mother's unconditional love and her grandparents' care, the smile slowly returned to her face. She went back to playing hide and seek and was no longer afraid to enter a dark room. Every time I saw her laughing out loud, riding on her grandfather's back, I felt my heart lighten. The scar on her wrist faded, and I trusted that the wound in her soul would also heal with time and love. A year after the divorce, one autumn afternoon, while waiting for my daughter at the daycare exit, I saw a man with a disheveled appearance and a delivery uniform lingering behind a tree. He was wearing a mask covering his face, but I recognized his eyes. It was Marcus. He looked 10 years older, and his skin was weathered by the sun. When he realized I had recognized him, he took off the mask, embarrassed and forced a smile. "Hi, I'm Father. I was passing by with the delivery and thought it was pickup time." Isla, seeing her father, stopped for an instant and hid behind me. The memory of what happened was still present, but children are generous by nature. Marcus carefully took out a cheap rag doll, the kind sold at flea markets. "It's for Isla. I know her birthday was yesterday. I don't have much money. I couldn't buy her a better gift. I'm sorry." I looked at the doll and then at the man, who was once a successful construction engineer, and who now earned a living as a delivery driver. I no longer felt resentment, only pity. I gave my daughter a gentle nudge on the shoulder. "Isla, go see the gift Daddy is giving you." The girl hesitated, approached, took the doll and said softly, "Thanks, Daddy." Marcus broke down crying. He crouched down with the intention of hugging his daughter, but seeing his hands dirty with grease, he held back. He wiped his tears and looked at me. "Thank you. Thank you for letting me see her." "Really? Well, I have to go. A customer is waiting." He hurriedly got onto an old motorcycle, started it and disappeared. I watched him move away inside. Now we belonged to different worlds. The greatest punishment for Marcus wasn't my hate, but having to live the rest of his life with the remorse of having lost a happy family. In that moment I understood that I had forgiven him completely, not for him but to free myself. 3 years have passed. Today the sky over O'Hare Airport is clear and bright. I'm carrying my suitcase and holding the hand of my daughter Isla, who is now a second grader. This time no one stops me. There are no forgotten passports and most importantly, no fears holding me back. Taking advantage of a company program, I have combined a work trip with a summer vacation with my daughter to Europe. Isla, seeing the huge planes through the window, screams excitedly, "Mommy, we're going to fly through the sky higher than Grandma's house." I smile and stroke her hair. "Yes, baby. Very high and very, very far to a beautiful place." While we wait for the plane, I receive a message from my mother. It's a photo of her garden and some baby chicks accompanied by a message with a few typos. "Have a great time. Don't worry about the house." I smile and turn off my phone. My life is no longer a perfect fairy tale. I am still a single mother. I still struggle with bills and sometimes I spend lonely nights. But I am free. I am the owner of my life and my emotions. I am no longer the weak and naive woman from before. The storm of the past swept away everything that was rotten and left solid foundations on which I have built a new life. I look out the airplane window at the blue sky without a single cloud. The clouds are white like cotton candy. I remember a phrase I read once. Sometimes it is necessary to go through pain that breaks your bones to be able to be reborn. I've been told that Mama Ida got out of prison after serving her sentence and lives quietly back in her town. They say she goes to church every day to pray and repent. Marcus continues working as a delivery driver, and occasionally sends Isla a little money. Everyone has their life and it no longer matters to me. The plane takes off and rises above the earth. I hold my daughter's hand tightly and breathe deeply. Before me opens the sky, freedom. A new world waiting for both of us. The true dawn doesn't come every morning. The true dawn comes when you are willing to leave the darkness behind and walk toward the sun. Thanks for listening to this long story.